Hi, this is Will Phillips of Roundtables, and I want to talk to you a little bit about how to run your meetings better, make better decisions, and solve problems better. The paradox is that we all think we think well, but the track record shows that we have tremendous failure rates. I was just reading another article about the failure rate of mergers and acquisitions to produce real value. This is the third study I've seen over 20 or 25 years, and the failure rate is still in the 80% range. Bad decisions are made and value is not created. We can all look, if we take our honest, pill, back at the decisions we've made about our business, and we can see things that did not turn out the way we had hoped. I think that's because we didn't do the best job of decision making. So I'm going to talk to you about 8 steps that every decision needs to attend to. Sometimes it can do them very quickly. Sometimes it can do them slower and with more depth. The important thing is that you don't skip from this step to this step and leave 3 out in the middle. You can move fast, but as long as you know you've worked your way through each step, then you'll get a higher quality decision. You can also use this to orchestrate how your meetings think about solving problems. I will also give you a new language that you can use to clarify what's happening with people's thinking and decision making in a meeting or even a discussion between husband and wife. Here we go. The very first thing that has to happen in solving any problem, going to a meeting, or making a decision is that you need to get ready to do it. We call that warm-up. That means getting ready and getting focused on the decision. The simplest way to explain that is sometimes we go to a meeting and you say, oh, great, everybody's here on time. The fact is, everybody's mind is not there. Because if you could go into people's minds, you would find that Bob over here is thinking about the project that he has to get done later today. Mary over here is upset by the phone call she just came off of. And Mike over here is thinking about the sports game that's going to happen tonight and whether his Little League team is going to be well enough coached. So even though we have the bodies there, we don't have the minds there. So we need to get the minds in the room as well as the bodies and get them focused on what we're going to deal with so we can use everybody's mind. Why have them there if their mind is not there? So we need to do a mind check. We need to also make sure the mind then gets focused down on what the issue is we're trying to deal with so we can stay on the subject and not wander all over the place. This is the warming up process. We do it in every Rex Roundtable. The next thing that happens is that you need to accumulate information, ACCUMULATE, about the data, the information that's going to help us make a decision. Sometimes we'll have that all readily available, and other times we'll have to decide what needs to be accumulated and actually go out of the meeting, accumulate it, and come back again. The next thing that happens after we think we have all the information, we've accumulated all the facts, all the experience, all the perspectives helpful for this decision, is that we deliberate. So, in a trial, this is generally what you see on TV, the accumulation and surfacing of the data. In the jury room, this is what the jurors do. They deliberate. They think, what does it mean? How does it connect together? How good is this data? Do we need more data? And sometimes you'll even see a message going back out to the judge saying, we'd like to get another chance to view this piece of data, or something of this sort. So the deliberation is the thinking process. This is the gathering process. They're very distinct. If you jump to deliberate before you've accumulated, in some countries of the world, we see trials like that. There's no accumulation of data. The judges just decide what to do. Now, in this process of deliberating, something else is going to beginning to be happening. It may even be happening up here, and for some even up here. We call this process illumination. This is the light bulb going on. This is the, aha, I think I see what to do. I understand it. Some people will walk into the meeting with illuminations on what to do. Their failure is that by not accumulating the data and thinking about it, they may go off half-cocked. So we have to ask them, please stop illuminating while we continue to think a little bit. When we think we've done all the thinking and the analysis and what does it mean, and that we haven't accumulated enough data, then we can start looking for ideas. But sometimes, as we finish the deliberation, we'll say, I think we need a little more data. We go back up and collect that, then we go and redeliberate. Now, we're ready for ideas. The ideas come based on all of this input into your brain. Now, if someone is a strong illuminator, and they also happen to be CEO, sometimes the meeting begins with their illumination. I have an idea on what we should be doing for a new marketing program. And they come in and they tell everybody, and because they are the owner, the leader, and because they say this with real forcefulness, nobody begins to question this or this. This is like a trial in China where a dissident has raised an uncomfortable or unpleasant issue, and they go to trial, and the judge says, I know what to do, kill him. And it's a half-hour trial, and nobody raises any objections like, do we have any data? And what does that really mean? This is what happens with some of our ideas. Usually, if it's not the leader who's come in with the illumination, there's a little more ease in questioning it and saying, well, I'd like to look at this thing, or should we get some data here, or what does this mean? Knowing these three words can help you figure out where you are and what you should be doing, because you can ask the question, have we finished accumulating the data on this? Do we have everybody's viewpoint? Have we asked the marketing director? Have we asked the customers what they really want? This, of course, is what's often missing in marketing choices, is that we're so excited about our creative illumination that we forget to accumulate what it is the prospects out there are really interested in. And in this time where the economy is changing and the way people buy and purchase is changing, the failure to ask this question can be a failure in our marketing illumination. Sometimes we don't always come up with the first idea, or that our first idea is our best idea. So there is a sneaky little stage in here that is usually skipped, neglected by most people. Because once we have an idea and we're kind of like it, that's the horse we want to run on. Please, don't be disruptive. But this next stage can be very powerful. It's called incubate. It's what the hen does. Sit on the egg, patiently, do nothing, just sit on it, let it hatch. This is what happens when we can't remember someone's name. We can't come up with the illumination of, what was the guy's name that we sailed with in 1962 when we were on our way to Bermuda and we had that big storm? You know, the short little funny guy? You can't remember the name. And so what we all know, what we've all learned, is how to incubate. We say, I'll stop thinking about it and it'll come to me. And who knows? In the next hour, the next day, a week later, all of a sudden, you pop up with Ariel Lowy. That was his name. It could be in the middle of dinner, could be in the middle of a speech, who knows? It just comes, you know, the brain has gone through the file searching, finally found the name and pulled it back up to the surface. Well, that's what incubation is about, is letting your subconscious go to work and do some work to help you make better choices and decisions, to help you come up with better ideas on what to do. The research on creativity has shown that when people try to create a new way of looking at something, and they work and work and work, and they eliminate a lot. And by the way, I think you all know, this is often called brainstorming, and the primary thing we don't do in brainstorming is evaluate or judge or be critical. So we just do that, and then we leave it, and we take a break. Even better, we take the big break, and the big break is to go home, have dinner, go to sleep, come back the next morning. And now we go back to eliminating. The track record is better ideas come out the next morning because we've slept on it. And sometimes we don't have time to sleep, but often we miss the incubation process, and so we don't have that benefit of coming back and adding more ideas up here to eliminate. There's a guideline. Not sure if it's exactly true, but it's helpful. And that is, if you're dealing with something really difficult and challenging, it's always good to have at least 3 possibilities to choose from on your solution, rather than just take the first one and ride on it. That shows you've done a little homework here. Now, as I mentioned earlier, when you're in this illumination incubation cycle, there's no criticism. Now, once that's done, and we have a lot of ideas, we come to the critical phase, the hard critical phase of this decision-making process. It is called accommodate. What this means is, now that we've got your ideas, we have to accommodate it to our budget, accommodate it to the time frame that we need to do this in, accommodate to other commitments we've made, accommodate to the legal and ethical guidelines that focus what we do. So this is the critical phase. This is a tough phase. By the way, these 8 steps were developed by each Acadesis at the Adesis Institute to help understand how to solve problems and how to run meetings better. And one of the things that he always talked about was this accommodation phase is the most likely one that executives and owners fail to do. They eliminate and they want to act. They don't want to do this. Why? Because this is the point where their idea is challenged and criticized. It's kind of like going to visit a new baby in the hospital, and the face may be a little squashed, or may be covered with all this white stuff or some blood, and you see this newborn baby, and of course the mom and dad say, "It's beautiful." If you as a stranger walked in and says, "Holy Moses, what an ugly kid," they'd kill you. Same is true when you come up with a new idea, like a new baby. Everybody wants to love it, particularly the owners. And to critique it is very dangerous. So it's not critiqued. So this takes great courage and commitment. This is why it's useful to have this posted in your meeting room, so people can ask the following questions. If the meeting is not going well, what step are we in? Are we accumulating or illuminating? Are we all in the same step? How will we know when we're done with this step? And what will we do to move to the next step? By the way, I think we missed accommodate. Here's what happens with a powerful illuminator in a key position. They illuminate, and they go to this stage. They finalize. Finalize is where you launch the action. Finalization has 4 elements to it. I think most of you know these. If you don't spell out these 4 imperatives, you really haven't finalized. You're just fooling around. Finalizing means converting the idea to action includes this. What result do we want? By when? Who will be the champion? It's not that a single person is only required to do it, but who will be the person who takes the lead, takes responsibility, and is held accountable for delivering the result? By when? And lastly, any advice on how they should do this or how they shouldn't do it? Like don't spend money or don't upset normal operations. And of course, when you're spelling out the result, remember that if you have a problem in sales and you decide what we need to do, is to hire and train 2 new salespeople. That's not the result. That's not the result. That's the how. The result is to improve sales, because too often we find people having completed the actions and not getting the results. So strong management that executes well, makes things happen, and implements real results always spells out what the result is, not what the activity is that leads to the result. So those are the 4 imperatives in Finalize. And as I said earlier, sometimes we come up with an idea and we jump down here and we've missed looking for more ideas, and we certainly haven't accumulated. Once that's all done, we then cool down. And here's why we do it. Remember in the beginning I said you start the meeting, everybody's physically there, but their minds are somewhere else. Having spent all this time together, now everybody's minds are in the meeting. Often on multi-day retreats, I have found that it's only on the 2nd or 3rd day that people are truly warmed up with their minds in the room, which is why more progress, more depth, more thinking happens on the 2nd or 3rd day than on the 1st day. Sometimes people are impatient not to spend too much time here, so we actually begin this, but this is still happening in the background. And a good retreat leader will know this and nurture this as a background beat, as the harmonies up here. So cool down means the meeting is over. Everybody leaves, but their minds are still in the meeting. You know what that means? As soon as I hit the restroom, they say, Bob, what, you think that was a good decision? I was unsure about this. Or, did you notice how forcefully so-and-so made their case and nobody listened to it? So what we have now is the parking lot meeting, or the restroom meeting, or the carpool meeting. This is a disaster. It is a form of organizational gossip that undermines the organization, because they're a secret conversation where people are seeking support and allies for a divergent viewpoint. This is an elephant that did not get brought into the room. So the job in a good cool down is to make sure that all the conversations have been completed. Sometimes this means talking or addressing each person individually. Have we covered everything? Do you have any lingering doubts? Do you have any concerns? Are you totally committed to make this happen? Yes? Okay. Next. We leave anything out? Anything missing? Are you committed to this decision? Good. Next. We get to this person, he says, well, you know, I'm still not sure. Thank you. And then we have to decide, by listening to them, which step we go back up to. Do they have some information that we need to include? Do they think we haven't done an analysis? Do they have another idea? Do they have an accommodation? This is actually a great idea, but I can almost guarantee you that the maintenance staff will be in revolt when they hear it. Well, why is that? It's going to require them to do overtime for the next 3 weekends. And I know a lot of the guys, because it's September, their kids are going back to school, sports are starting up, their weekends are not their own. Oh, I didn't know that. Let's see if we can redesign our finalization to accommodate the maintenance staff. Anyway, folks, you have some idea of these different steps. It seems that in a good decision, we generally go through these. In a poor decision, one that didn't work out well, one that didn't get implemented well, one that didn't work very well, you can go back and usually analyze probably one key step, maybe two, that was shortchanged or rushed through or actually even skipped. Learning these words is a way for you to learn a new language about how to talk about the process of thinking, instead of getting into arms about Bob and Julio arguing over something. When we can talk about the process, we can sometimes remove all the heat from the content and talk about the process. It's not that Bob and Julio really disagree. It's that Julio's illuminating and Bob doesn't think we've finished deliberating. But the argument comes out as a Bob Julio instead of a where are we in the 8 steps. So I want to give full credit to each Acadesis for developing these steps and sharing them with hundreds of CEOs, not thousands, around the world. If you're familiar with the 4 roles of management, producer, administrator, entrepreneur, and integrator, you can begin to see how different roles will prefer different steps here. So the administrator loves this. In fact, they can get stuck here, accumulate more, deliberate, and get locked into a cycle here called paralysis by analysis. That's the administrator's challenge. The entrepreneur, on the other hand, comes into the meeting maybe ready to finalize, at least full of illuminations. The integrator, on the other hand, is really worried about us all getting along and feeling like, you know, we're connected and that we are unified in our decision to go forward. And he wants to make sure everybody is bought in. So the integrator loves the warm-up. They bring the coffee and donuts in the beginning. They're the ones who always want to ask, well, how was it for you? And they're also very concerned about accommodating all the parts of the organization to be in sync. Usually these 3 roles, administrator, integrator, and entrepreneur, arrive at the meeting relatively on time. The producer role, the 4th of these 4 roles, often arrives late because they're really busy doing stuff. And they also know that the first part of the meeting is usually a waste of time. When they do arrive, they listen to all this conversation. The entrepreneur is talking about his ideas. The administrator wants to get more data. The integrator is worried that not everybody's in the meeting who should be there and not everybody's on board. And the producer comes in, listens to this, and says, oh my God, what a waste of time. He says, let's take action. If he happens to be the leader of the organization or the leader of the meeting or the person with the highest stature, they're likely to pound the table and say, enough, here's what we're going to do. You're responsible, this is the result, this is by when, meeting's over. Now as you can see, all of these 4 roles have a contribution to play, but only when they're harmonized. It's kind of like playing music. You have 3, 4, 5 different kinds of instruments, and they all add to the experience, but they have to come in at the right time. They have to play together. They have to have enough respect so that the violin doesn't stop playing while the guitar is still playing. You have to have enough respect here to contain your various favored position while others do theirs. This is called teamwork. This is the fundamental definition of teamwork. Are you willing to sacrifice your normal, natural instincts and desires in order for the whole team to work together and win? That's it. Thank you very much. To find out more, look at rexroundtables.com.